So the staff's back in town. You have the number 6 rated football team. I'm going to tell you what I think that Ole Miss should do, but let's get Bill Flowers' opinion on what's going on. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, the most watched Ole Miss podcast out there. I'm your host, Stephen Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media with Yahoo Sports and a former staff member at Ole Miss. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number 1 sports podcast network, I think, in the world. On today's show, we're going to get into Ole Miss right now, number 6 in the college football playoff rankings, with everything set to be announced on Sunday. We'll find out what Ole Miss is going to have going for them, where the game will be played, is likely Vaught Hemingway Stadium, and who it will likely be against. We'll also talk a little bit with Bill about this Lane Kiffin type situation. So stick around for that. But remember, we're free and available on all the podcast apps and on YouTube. And thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day. And a special hello to the insiders and everydayers who make the show what it is. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. All right, Bill, everybody was freaking out about where Ole Miss was going to end up in the rankings because of all the drama that has been circulating around the program. Ole Miss moved up 1 spot. I think that a home playoff game is guaranteed, and it's at the point where Ole Miss fans should start celebrating, if we're going to be honest.
Yeah, they should start celebrating. Absolutely. I mean, I'm planning on coming over there. I'm going to be there 100%. I'm excited about it. I think this is the best excitement that Ole Miss has ever had in the last 50 years in Oxford. And I'm excited. I'm excited for the players. I'm excited for the fans. And I think this is a great opportunity for the program to really stand on its own merit, especially now that Kiffin has left. And
quit. Say quit. Don't say left.
Quit. Yeah, he quit. So he built something that is very sustainable, and I'm excited to see them be able to play with the with the talent that they have, with the future of Ole Miss continuing to excel.
So Ole Miss has named their staff for this, and basically every assistant coach is going to be there, despite Lane basically trying to burn the house down on his way down to Baton Rouge. But part of that is likely Charlie Weis Jr. And I saw a post of yours on Facebook to where you're a little bit nervous about that. And Ole Miss is obviously trying to potentially hire Charlie Weis Jr. after the playoffs. This isn't just a stopgap type thing, but because of the Lane Kiffin statement to where he talked about allowing Charlie, it was basically like a hostage taker note going out about Charlie Weis Jr. And the reply from Charlie Weis that looked like somebody had the access to his account sending that, I can see why it would look weird optically. But if Ole Miss genuinely thinks they can hire him after this is over, I don't think there's anything to worry about.
Yeah, that's a big if. And one of my biggest concerns is that Kiffin will try to make the point that everything they had to do something with LSU. Look, Charlie Weis Jr. is LSU's offensive coordinator. If that's what happens, they didn't do it on their own. It was part of LSU. I said it before, I wanted to see the ultimatum be put in place before the Egg Bowl, so these players could show that this is not Lane Kiffin. This team is not based around Lane Kiffin. This team is based around the players that are there, and let the coaches coach and show Lane the door and say, listen, we are bigger than you. You're not the program. And I just don't want to see Charlie Weis Jr. have any part in this, in the college football playoff success, and him go to LSU. That is my big thing. The other part is that you're going to have a rat in the hen house. I mean, if he is going to stay at Ole Miss and sign a guarantee that he's not leaving, then that's one thing. But if there's nothing there put in place, you cannot allow him to do this. I don't know how much Joe Judd can call plays. I don't know. So I get that aspect of it, but I think from a recruiting standpoint, if he does not have a contract signed and he is the offensive coordinator for Ole Miss and he is going to be here long term, then the success that happens in the college football playoff is all Ole Miss. But you don't want the recruiting aspect to be tainted. You don't want anything to be taken away from Ole Miss, because Kiffin will use every single thing he can against Ole Miss and try to spin everything he can to his advantage for LSU.
Okay, this is my retort, and I don't want anybody that's watching this to think I'm sticking up for Kiffin, because I'm not on this. But for 6 years at Ole Miss, anytime something happened good, it was Lane Kiffin's doing, and he even took credit for that. Anytime that something happened bad, he let the blame fall onto Charlie Weis Jr. Now Lane Kiffin's going to try and make all the good from the playoff, I guess, rub off on him in Baton Rouge. Is that what you're saying?
I think that I don't know how much Lane Kiffin called plays from the very beginning. He said when he became
we go too fast for him to call plays. The offense goes too fast. They're calling the next play as soon as the ball is out of the quarterback's hand.
So my thing was always, if you hire Kiffin as the offensive coordinator, head coach, you need to let him do that. That's what you hired him for. I get it. He said he never wanted to essentially castrate a offensive coordinator. If you hire him to be an offensive coordinator, you hire him to call the plays. And so I think Kiffin would call the plays in the very beginning, and then Weis would call the plays later on. And this year's play calling has been much better than in the years past. And a lot of that has to do with the success of Keon Lacey and having that running game. So I'm not so sure that Kiffin's offense, Lacey, everything is very similar amongst other teams. This offense is not like McDaniels with the Miami Dolphins. That is very unique in the NFL. This offense that they've been running is pretty much, like all these other quick RPO offenses. So I don't know how good Charlie Weis is compared to other coaches amongst his peers. It's dictated around your players. You're only as good as your quarterback. Let's just make no mistake about that. The NFL is a quarterback-driven league. If you look at Drake Mays with the Patriots, you can see how much he's elevated that team. You're only as good as your quarterback. So I'm not totally sold on. I mean, you've got to have the running back and you've got to have the quarterback. And we have those two pieces. So if you can run something that truly differentiates and truly creates a lot of problems, if you're doing a lot of motion and a lot of misdirection that's unique, that maybe other people can't do, that's where you're like Kyle Shanahan. That whole system was based on motion. It's based on trying to get the other teams out of position. It's pretty complex. It's very highly intelligent. So in regards to what we run, I don't really know how well Charlie Weis Jr. Is he that big of a component? Lane Kiffin, he seems to be when you saw him call plays in the first 15 plays, there was something unique. There was something different about it. There was something very, okay, you can see that had Lane's handprint on it. Then you could see Charlie Weis's handprint on what he was doing. And I was never really impressed with what Charlie Weis Jr. was calling. But I loved Lane Kiffin when he was calling. It was unique. It was different. So that's – and LSU's not going to get that. LSU, I don't think he is going to be the play caller at LSU. If he's smart, he would, because there's going to be more pressure on him than ever before, and he better win. And I think he might take that responsibility and that pressure and say, hey, I'm going to be the play caller. So I don't know if what I'm saying makes sense, but I just don't think Charlie Weis Jr. as of right now is that big of a I just
structurally you got to have him for the playoffs. You have to have him for the playoffs.
Can Joe Judd not do this? I mean, and that's where
we haven't seen. There's no data point to
right.
That.
So
why change everything right now when you're going into a playoff? That's the question.
Yeah. So
structurally, you want to be the same.
I would say, listen, Joe Judd, he's got the play calling experience in the NFL. He has head coaching experience in the NFL. He's somebody that if he stays on the staff, he is not going to LSU. Maybe
he might. We're going to take a break real quick, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about him and Pete Golding and all of that, and we'll even get into the playoff matchup potentially down the road. We're here with Bill Flowers, Ole Miss legend. Stick around. We'll be right back. The NFL Sundays move fast, and one big play, and it suddenly feels different. That's what makes live betting on FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching a game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets on as the action unfolds, every drive and every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, the momentum flips after a turnover or going forward on fourth down. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as the guys heat up. You can bet on the next touchdown score or the drive results or totals and even more, as it helps keep you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, so can you. Do us a favor, like, subscribe, and comment on this video. Subscribe to the podcast on whichever audio podcatcher you're listening to and give it a 5-star review. It costs absolutely nothing, but it keeps everything free. Locked On is getting ready to change the game yet again, all in the name of having fun following your team. It's coming in December, actually just a few days from now. We'll tell you more whenever we know more. And thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen of the day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network in the country. Potentially the world, but definitely the country. I'm not exactly sure about that. All right, Bill. One thing's interesting, and we're going to go back and talk about the Charlie Weis thing potentially as this goes. But Ole Miss named Pete Golding as the head coach, not the interim head coach, named him the head coach. Yeah. He got the job. He is thought of as an absolutely brilliant mind. He's the guy that got on a chalkboard in front of Nick Saban and started drawing up defenses and went from Texas San Antonio to the University of Alabama. The guy knows football. That's what I'm saying there. I think this is a good hire. I think Pete honestly probably deserves a medal for the way he's handled the first 72 hours of this whole situation, to the point where signing day today was not an abject disaster as the way it could have been. What do you think about that hiring? Because I pretty much like it right now.
Well, let's make no bones about it. 100% of the success that's going to happen in the college football playoff is going to be through Pete Golding and the success of our defense. 100%. So I think that Pete was a great hire. I think you could have done multiple different things if you had the time to assess everything and make a calculated decision. But with the time frame that they actually had, you don't know what, like, Florida doesn't know what they're going to get. I mean, listen, if you haven't coached in the SEC and had as a head coach and had success, it's difficult to figure out what you're going to get. Florida has, just fired their coach, who was the next big thing.
Who was John Summerall 3 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. So you don't know what you're going to get. At least with Pete, you've got somebody that's from the Nick Saban mindset. He's a great recruiter. He can build a staff that is strong, and the defense is what is going to dictate whether Ole Miss wins games in this playoff. There's no doubt Ole Miss's offense is that's proven. That is your
talent everywhere.
That's your common denominator that is going to produce. What you don't know is going to produce is your defense. Against Georgia, if our defense could have stopped a couple different drives, we win that game.
That is 1 4th and 2.
Exactly.
1 4th and 2. They win.
That is what's going to dictate the success of Ole Miss in this playoff game. So that's why I don't care about Charlie Weis Jr. I think Joe Judge can come in and play and do this. But at the end of the day, what the long-term success of Ole Miss is going to be is their defense. Last year, we saw the reason why Ole Miss was highly successful was because of the aggressive defense that Pete Golding put into place, because he had that talent. This year, he doesn't have the talent like he did last year, but he's going to have to be aggressive. And I'm hoping kind of learn from the Georgia game about it's better to be more aggressive than not, because if you're not, you're going to be in a track meet. And I would rather lose with an aggressive play calling on defense with the potential of making mistakes than getting your brain bashed in with a run game that like Georgia. So I'm excited about Pete. I really am. You can go the NFL route, bring in a coordinator, create Ole Miss as the incubator for the NFL, bring in an NFL coordinator and say, listen, we are going to be our mindset is to be the school, the university that all the NFL coaches look at to say, we know you're being trained up. We know you're being taught. You can go that route, or you can go the Pete Golding route, which is he's our defense coordinator. He's a great recruiter. The kids love him. And I think it's great. His head coach at Delta State was my head coach in high school. And I reached out to Rick Rhodes, and he said, listen, this is a guy that you will love. He is good as gold. He is a great guy. And so I'm excited about it. Again, but our offense is going to do what it does. You've got to have the players in place. And this year we've got Keon Lacey. You've got the quarterback. You've got the receivers. Defensively, that is where, Pete Golding looks like today. He's done really good in signing some really good defensive players. And at the end of the day, you're only as good as the players that you have on the field.
All right. When we come back, we will talk to Bill. We talk home playoff game, all of that. We'll spend the last 10 minutes of the show talking about that. The biggest game in the state of Mississippi history. That is coming up in about 2 weeks, and we can't wait for that. Bill Flowers back in just a second. All right, Bill. So we are, let's see, December 19th, December 20th. There's one game on the 19th. There's 3 games on the 20th for the college football playoff. Ole Miss is likely going to be one of those spots. Hopefully it's a night game because I can't imagine what Vaught Hemingway would look like at night for that type environment. But Ole Miss is kind of the promise that, in my opinion, this is my opinion, what Johnny Vaught won it back in the days, and Bill heard all the stories because before the LSU game, they had Johnny Vaught on there before he died talking about Ole Miss finally made it back to this stage. Well, not quite, but now they're finally here. And this is my opinion, Bill. I want to get your opinion on this. I think that Ole Miss should make the playoff. About the players, I get that, but make it a celebration a little bit of Johnny Vaught, of what he did at Ole Miss. And my idea for a way to do that is through the uniform. I think Ole Miss should bring back the uniforms that were worn back in the late 50s, early 60s with the numbers on the side of the helmets, wear the red, the gray pants, and all of that. This is a uniform combination that has not been worn by Lane Kiffin because I think right now the powder blues have a little bit too much Kiffin stink to bring them out in the playoffs. I think this would be a perfect opportunity for a little bit of healing and celebrating what's going on.
So you're telling me that we've never wore the blue helmets, like the picture that's on there right now? This is
with the numbers.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, listen, all the players against LSU in 2003, we thought we were coming out in powder blues. We thought we were.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
We thought, but Cutcliffe, listen, he is as plain Jane as they come. I love David. I love Coach Cutcliffe, but there is nothing about him that is flashy or exciting. It's just not like
that is not his personality. No.
He wouldn't let us wear white shoes. It had to be black. It had, he was very conservative. So anything that can give the players extra momentum of this is more than just about us. This is about a program. This is about the history. This is about what we've done in the past. I'm all for it.
Yeah, it should be interesting. What made you think that you were going to wear powder blues in that 2003 LSU game? Where was the rumor for that?
Sorry, not powder blue uniforms, powder blue helmet.
Powder blue helmets, yeah.
Yes.
What made you think that?
Because of the history.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the history of just like what you said. This is what they wore. We thought we were going to come out, and I'm like, would that have made us win the game? No, but I think that would have increased more of the excitement. Cutcliffe he wouldn't have done that. And unfortunately, I wish we would have, because that would have paid homage to the history. And I think that is important, especially in today's day where players do not care. They don't know the history, but this would be a good way of really paying homage to Vaught and the past national champions. And I think it's a great idea, but I know that there were lots of us that thought, okay, can you imagine if we come out in the old helmets? We were hoping it, but it never came to fruition.
Yeah. I did not know that, but you're right. If Ole Miss would have came out in that game in powder blue helmets, LSU could have went home. They could have went home that game.
Uniforms don't win, but when you have
the adrenaline, though.
But when you have, listen, this is the credit that I give Lane Kiffin. He is he is a personality that thinks outside the box. And if you're going to be successful in life, you got to think outside the box. And that's what he is. He came into Oxford. He said, listen, we need to think outside the box. I want this. I want that. I'm ahead of the curve. And he was the first to really go after and weaponize social media to his advantage, and look at our uniforms and say, listen, these kids want to play in a uniform that makes them feel good, that looks good, that has swag to it. And that enticed those players to come to Ole Miss, because you've got somebody that's thinking outside the box. You got somebody that's different. That's Lane Kiffin. And that's a huge advantage that he has. He's built the program now that can, hopefully will continue to build on thinking outside the box and being different and playing to the, your recruits and what they want.
Yeah, and it's just an unbelievably clean uniform. It is hard to beat the powder blue helmets, red jerseys, and gray pants as just a set for Ole Miss. And if you put the numbers on the side, that's all that happens. Yeah. And I also think this is an opportunity for Ole Miss to start a brand new tradition to where you don't put numbers on the side of the helmets until you get into the playoff. Make it like Clemson's orange pants or Notre Dame putting names on the back of the jersey, something like that, to where this is almost a reward it would pay homage to those who came before.
Yeah, I'm all for it.
All right, Bill, what do you got going on this weekend, buddy?
This weekend, it's going to be cold in Birmingham. We've got my son's first basketball game, and that's going to be interesting, watching 6-year-olds. I thought flag football was a racket for 6-year-olds, but basketball is like watching just rats on a ship, just trying to figure out, how to jump off a ship. Like they just run everywhere. It's crazy. It's hilarious. So this would be our first experience watching my son play basketball. And so it'll be interesting and fun. My daughter's got, I think some gymnastic stuff. So we'll be pretty busy this weekend, like usual.
Yes. We're sitting here. I'm trying to automatically get in my head. We're going to do the pregame show and the postgame show from the playoff game area at the Tampa Rebel Club watch party. So I'm already starting to work in my head on the logistics of how to make that work. Anyway, thank you so much, buddy. And we will talk to you next week once we know who we're playing in the college football playoffs. Should be pretty awesome, man.
All right, man. Hotty toddy.
Hotty toddy. Bill Flowers, Ole Miss legend, joining the show. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your go-to source for Ole Miss sports. We pride ourselves on offering the most comprehensive perspectives, which is why we are the front door of Ole Miss. If you don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment, it all helps the show, and it's completely free. Your support means the world to us. And thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss the first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out Locked On SEC. Chris Gordy breaks down the best conference in all of college sports, from the rivalries to the championship and every game in between. Find Locked On SEC on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts as part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Hotty toddy, everybody. Almost to the playoffs, almost around that corner. This is a very good day. Anyway, take care, and we will see you later.